All right, welcome everybody. Let's do this. So let's review that concept of domain and range. And we did this yesterday. Like, how would you define the domain of a graph? And how would you define the range of a graph, right? So remember, when we talk about domain, we're talking about set of all possible x values. So the idea is when we look for domain, we're going to look to the left and we're going to look to the right. So when we look at this graph, let's see what are all possible x values. So let's take a look over here and let's zoom in and let me clear this and bam. Okay, that's good. Now let's take a look here. When we think about domain, the idea is the same. We're going to look left and right. So how far from starting from here, how far left does the graph go? Well, let's see. Notice it stops here at -10. So here, -10 is the farthest left you can go. So here we're going to write -10. How far right can you go? Well, okay, so we could go all the way to 10 over here, +10. But now we just have to be okay with the notation. The idea is, if we, what do we do for the notation? Here, parentheses imply that the value is not included. And here, brackets imply that the value is included. So here, do you have x equals -10? No. Here, this is open circle. So if I have an open circle over here, we have to use a parentheses over here. And then what do we do over here? This is closed circle. This means we have x equals 10. Here, we do not have x equals -10. So when we have it, we put a bracket. When we don't have it, we put a parentheses. And this comma implies we have everything in between -10 and 10. That means you have all these x values, like you have x equals -9, -8, -7, -6, and all the way down. You even have like x equals a half. You have all the numbers in between, and that's what the that's what the comma implies. Okay, now let's look at the next idea, which is range. So how do you find the range of this graph? So let's take a look over here. The range is a set of all possible y values, and we're going to look up and down. So here, when we look at range over here, how far low, you see, now let's focus. Before, we looked left and right for the domain. Now, I want you to look up and down. Let's see, when we look at this graph, how far down does this graph go? Notice that it looks like it goes as low as 2. 2 is the lowest you have. But now, is this a parentheses or a bracket? Okay, and because this point is closed, you have a bracket. And then we have, let's see, we have everything in between, right? So we have 3, we have 4, we have 5, 6. Okay, so now what's the highest we have? Now we have it at up to 9 over here. So this is 9, and it's a bracket because this point over here is closed. And that's the domain and range for this graph. What I want you to do is try and do the next one by yourself. What is the domain and range of this graph? Okay, let's see. Pause the video and try and do it by yourself. Okay, so let's say you pause the video and now you're trying to do it. Let's take a look. Domain. How far left can you go? So you see, how far left can you go? Okay, that's the question you ask first. How far left can I go? Okay, I can go all the way up to -8. Okay, so x equals -8. And you see here, this is a closed circle. So here it's at -8, and we're going to put a bracket. Okay, how far, now we ask, how far right can we go? How far right can we go? We could go all the way to, it looks like 10. But the idea is because it's open, then we have a parentheses. Okay? Now for the question of range, how far down can you go? Right? So how far low can you go? Here, you go as far as -4. Okay? And how high do you, and you see how it's closed, so it's bracket. And how high does the graph go? The graph goes as high as 10. But the idea is that this also has to be a parentheses too, because you have an open circle. This is open. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next one. Try and do these by yourself. Okay? And if you just want to see how it's done with me, okay, so how far, let's do domain. How far left can you go? You can go all the way to -11. And you see it's open circle. Okay, how far right can you go? It's 10, so, okay, 10, and it's open circle. Okay, how far low can you go? How far down can the graph go? The graph can go as low as -9, and you see this point over here, that's closed. So then we're gonna have a bracket over here. And then what do we have over here? How far high does the graph go? The graph peaks over here, and that's at -3, and this is also a bracket because this point over here is closed. Okay? Okay, good. Happy face. Oh god, that wasn't a good happy face. Let's try another one. Okay, that was better. Alright, let's try the last one over here. How far left can you go? You can go to -3. How far right can you go? You can go to 5. And these are both closed. And then how far low can you go is -5. And then how far high can you go is 2. And then we're done with the first page. Congratulations. Okay, now the next page, this was kind of just like a warm-up. The next page gets a little more tricky, but not that bad. So let's take a look here. Let's look at this graph over here. So, what's the question we ask for domain, right? What's the question we ask is, how far left can we go? And we go, right? So how far left can we go? It looks like we could go as close as -4, right? And then because it's closed, we're gonna close the circle. Now the question, the big question is how far right can we go? Now this idea, well, okay, we could go to 1 because that's the point. We could go to 2, that's the point. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and okay, now we're here at 10. But you see, this idea is if I have this arrow here, this flecha, what happens here? This idea, it keeps going over here. It just keeps going. So notice how this keeps going, and it's going to infinity. Okay? So now you see this idea is the domain of this graph. How far left can we go? We could go to -4. But how far right can we go? We can keep going all the way to infinity because this arrow keeps continuing. So when we put in infinity here, we put the comma, right? Because we have everything between -4 and infinity. But the question we have to ask is it going to be parentheses? Like, are we going to put parentheses or bracket over here? Well, the question we need to ask is infinity a number? And the idea is infinity is not a number. It just keeps going. It's an idea. So should we put the parentheses or the bracket for negative infinity or positive infinity? We're going to put parentheses always because you can never touch infinity. It just like, imagine trying to grab the line. Like if I try and take this line, if I try and grab it, it doesn't let me because the line just keeps going and I can never get to it. So that's the idea for that. So what about range? Why don't you try and do this one by yourself, right? How far low does the graph go? Okay, well, let's see. How far low does the graph go? The lowest y value you have is 0, and that's a bracket. But then how far high does the graph go? Notice that this graph keeps going up, 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 up. So this is going to positive infinity. And that's the range. Okay? What I want you to do is try and do the other questions by yourself. Pause the video and try and do it. Okay. Let's see if you want to see how it's done now. This is, let's see, what's the domain? The domain for this one is, first, how far left can you go? It looks like this graph goes to negative infinity. That is how far left you can go. How far right can you go? You can go all the way to -3. And this is bracket. Oh, I made a mistake. This is parentheses, sorry. Okay. Let's see, what's the range? The range, the lowest you have is 0. And what's the highest you have is infinity. Oh, this is bracket. Okay. All right, let's try the next one. For this one, domain, let me fix the camera angle. I don't know what this thing is. Okay, it doesn't go away, but okay. So here, how far left can you go? You could go to -3. How far right can you go? You could go to 5. How far low can you go? You could go to 0. And how high can you go? It's 4. Yeah, 4. And that's it for this one. Okay, what about this one? For this one, how far, let's take a look at this graph. Doesn't this graph look like x cubed, right? Look at the dance move. This is, what is it? Odd positive, right? Okay, so what's the domain of some odd positive graph? Here, okay, how far left can you go? It looks like I can go all the way to -infinity. How far right can I go? All the way to positive infinity. How far low can I go? All the way to -infinity. And how high can I go? All the way to positive infinity. So the domain and range is a set of all real numbers for this graph. Okay. Try and do the next page by yourself. You got this. Don't give up.